Well, I totally botched that, so we're just going to start. How's that for how things are going to go today? Welcome to the Electric Car Hangout. I am just pausing something there so you don't hear birds tweeting in the background. I was going to come live to a shot of this morning at the lake with all kind of hazy, cool scenery, but I thought of that last minute, and so that's why the intro stalled out and then restarted. And yeah, technical prowess right here. But welcome. Thanks for joining. I'm going to see if I can bring up the chat window there so I can see it. Steve, hello, welcome. Thanks for joining. Todd, hello. Good to talk to you again. Yeah, a lot's happened in 3 months. I didn't realize I haven't done this in 3 months, and I was thinking back of how the world of EVs has kind of changed so much in that time with all the NACS information, all the updates and things. Even today, I think today was Polestar, which made sense right after Volvo. And then I saw Electrify America is also going to be using the handles on their stations. We'll see how this all plays out. I'm interested in your thoughts and everything. But we've also had major announcements, people driving the Silverado EV pickup. That's been interesting to see. The little Volvo that everybody saw about a month ago, the EX30, I think it is. That's exciting. And then now we'll also probably start production with NACS plug. So very interesting. Lots of superchargers opening up here as we enter the end of Q2. And so, and last night I was at the drag strip, Brainerd International Raceway, with Todd and Jason and some of the other folks from the Minnesota Tesla Owners Group. I was just watching, but watching Jason race his Plaid on the drag strip. So lots going on. If anybody wants to talk about anything in particular, I'm all for it. It's been so long. I'm a little rusty, so I'm happy to take this anywhere we want to go. Yeah, Steve, it does feel like it's been a while. And Roland's here. Hey. Thanks for the birthday wishes. I was going to be drinking. My wife got me some Coronas, but she got the non-alcoholic, so I was going to be drinking those during the live stream, but it was kind of a frantic setup. So we went to the drag strip last night, and that was up in Brainerd. My wife's family, extended family, has a cabin in a lake, or near a lake not far from there. And so we decided we'd stay overnight. I had my daughter and my brother with me, and so stayed overnight. It was kind of cloudy, misty, lots of wildfire smoke haze here. So that was yesterday. It was a little, kind of a crummy day. They did manage to dry the strip off fast enough, or soon enough, that people could race last night, but I'm glad we didn't get up to the cabin too early. But then this morning we woke up. It was hazy when I woke up, but by the time my daughter woke up and we got rolling, the sun was out. We were able to canoe around the lake and do some swimming and stuff before coming home. But that meant coming home, unpacking the car, getting dinner, and then starting a live stream. So, yeah, it's a little discombobulated here. But thank you. And John, hey, how's it going? John's actually been pressuring me every month, like, are you going live? Are you going live? It's supposed to be Wednesday. Well, this Wednesday was the drag strip night, so I'm like, okay, I'll do it Thursday. I'll do it. But I am happy to do it. Happy to talk about the NACS. Everybody joining. It seems like just one announcement after another. I think I even saw it today. I also haven't had a lot of time to be online today, but that even Volkswagen is now considering it. So I think that means that would be all of their brands. I don't know if that's Porsche included now or how exactly that breaks out, but that would be a huge milestone, and it would make sense if Electrify America is also adopting it. That I know there's some separation, but the fact that Volkswagen might be joining I can't see how that doesn't mean everybody's in on it. But Steve has been testing, and I want to get his opinion because he's been testing the Magic Dock stations out in New York. He's about to set off, or just did set off, on a big road trip, and I'm sure he's not relying on the Tesla network as of yet, but he's driving the Hyundai Ioniq 5, and excuse me, has been kind of highlighting some of the issues that the Ioniq 5 has had connecting to Magic Dock. It sounds like he had a successful session, but maybe it was a little slow, and then maybe some more failed sessions. So, and I think he said before that the Hyundai people say Tesla is working on the software side and should have it fixed in Q2. We're getting near the end here, so hopefully they can sort out those bugs. I know Peter Rawlinson had a statement last week or earlier this week that, I think Lucid's kind of waiting until they're sure their cars can charge right on it. That might be part of the same software tweak that needs to be made, or it might be a separate issue with the Lucids. I'm not 100% sure on how that's going, but let's see. Roland, Chemist America Lifestyle says, I got one, our 2016 Model S door won't open. Is this something I can fix myself? Is the handle not working, or the door won't open? Like if you're on the inside, will the door open? And the handle's just not presenting? That is something I think you can buy a kit and just do it yourself. People have done that. I never did, but it was a little easier for me to get a mobile Ranger to come out than it is in North Dakota. So if it's a handle not presenting, I think you can get something and just do it yourself. I don't think it's that difficult. If it's not opening from the inside either, that seems like oh, okay, it is the handle. Yeah, if it wasn't opening on the inside either, then that would be probably a bigger problem. You might need to get, a service tech to look at it. John says Mary's not leading anymore. She's following. Yeah, she followed forward. Actually, as I was talking to my wife about this, she was saying, so was everybody just waiting for like one person to start? And it's like, yeah, it seems like once Ford did, everybody piled on. Now, ChargePoint did say that they'd been working with Tesla for a year or so on that. So maybe some of the charging providers have been working on it on the back end. It's presenting, but it won't open. So, yeah, Jason, hi, welcome. The new sets have metal gears for S handles, and so they should last. It's presented, but it won't open. Yeah, it's not. there's something in the handle that's not engaging the actual opening signal. You can tell I know a lot about this, right? When I had it, the handle wouldn't come out. So it sounds like your problem is a step past that, where the handle is coming out, but the signal's not getting in. Thank you, Jason. Bad switch. I think there's some YouTube videos on how to do that. Again, I'm so close to the service stations. When I had issues with my S, I just had the Mobile Ranger come out and do it. So that would have been a good exercise for YouTube to actually have done like that replacement, but I know lots of people have done it. So I don't know if there's like a retailer or someone who has that as a kit, but I think you could just buy it from one of the like Tesla aftermarket places. Out of warranty, so figured try to fix it first before I ask for mobile. Yeah, makes sense. And I mean, you're a pretty handy guy. I don't think it's rocket science. Again, if I thought I could do it, then pretty much anybody can do it. If you've seen me in any videos, you know that kind of stuff is not always my forte. I did used to work in a shop with tools and everything and know how to do things. But Eurotech would sell one. Okay, so yeah, that I think their website's just like Eurotech.com or something like that. And they've got locations here in Minneapolis, or in the Twin Cities. I'm not sure if they're only local here, but I'm sure they could ship it out. Keenan, thanks for joining. I'm planning to order a Model Y long range in July. Excited to join you all. Not far from me in Burnsville. Excellent. Well, we'll have to meet at one of the meetups. I think if you're in the Minnesota Tesla Owners group, which you can be before you join or before you own one. If you're in one of those, in that group, I think there's a meetup coming in late in July. So you might be able to bring your brand new baby to the meetup. Steve asks, does widespread NACS adoption make Tesla less appealing to the new EV buyer or no change? I think maybe less. There is, Tesla's kind of to the point of, like the Kleenex brand, like an electric, to some people, an electric car is just a Tesla, regardless of who makes it. So I think to some people, it's not going to make a big deal. But I think if for some reason Tesla design, personality quirks, or whatever, it doesn't appeal to you, I think it definitely makes the other brands more appealing. Somebody had commented on a recent video I did about the Polestar 3, and they're like, who would want to pay more for Chinese, car or whatever? And that's not the deciding factor for everybody. If you go to a parking lot, grocery store parking lot, hardware store parking lot, there's a million different cars, and like most of them you would not buy because you bought the car you bought for the reasons you have. with the EV trucks coming out, like on some level, I think they're all cool and I'm excited about them, but I have zero need for a truck. And like if I did, like the Rivian size would be probably right for me, but I'm super glad they exist, but I don't, personally care that much. So I think people will be excited that there is a standard if the station works, that there's a standard that's easy to use. I can see, like my mother trying to explain to her, okay, here's all the different charging plugs, and here's the stations you can go to and then can't go to, or you need an adapter for. This makes it a lot easier, for someone like her to make the switch, in the next couple of years as adoption grows. So I think does it make it less appealing? Maybe. It makes it less appealing to the people who felt like they had to buy a Tesla. Like, I've said before, in Minnesota, I've had a hard time recommending other brands because CCS network is so shoddy here, especially if you go north or west. So, my sister is a big Volvo fan. She loves Volvo, doesn't believe the Tesla safety stuff or doesn't know about it. Because she's not watching this channel. But she knows in her mind, like, Volvo is the safest car. I want my kids in a Volvo. I want, all that. And so this makes it easier for me to say, hey, your next Volvo, you won't have any problems charging when you make a switch to the Volvo of your choosing, electric. So I think it gives people who don't want to deal with Tesla, don't like just the single center screen, some of those other externals, I think this gives them an easier out. And for people like my wife who thinks the ID4 is just cute as a button, and I don't necessarily disagree, but it's just, I enjoy the Model Y. But, I was thinking, well, if she, when the Prius dies, if she gets a ID4, that's basically going to be our around town, which seems like a waste for an ID4, which is a nice car. But if she were to do that, that's how I would have felt. Now, if it's a year from now, I feel a lot more confident of, let's flip a coin and see what car we take. So that's kind of how I feel about it. I'd be interested in anybody else's take because, I think it gives people an out from feeling like they have to. But I don't know that I don't think it's going to hurt the brand so much. Also, when everybody's charging at superchargers, not that that will be the only charging place, but when people are charging at superchargers, they say Tesla. So they've got that built-in advertising machine running. And if they do fix some of the software issues that you've seen, Steve, where, everybody's having a good experience charging there, and you plug in and hey, this Tesla thing just works, that's going to be a pretty good, marketing thing. So I think they'll lose some, they'll gain some, and it'll probably be more up to what the different products offer for different people. So that was very long-winded. So if you guys have comments on that, please put those in the chat. Hey, Glenn, welcome. Blue Dog 99, welcome. Roland was sold on the Polestar with the gold seatbelt. Yeah. A lot of people think that's really cool. It looks great on the black seats, but on their cream seats, it's a little nauseating to me. But I like Polestars. Are they a little more expensive than Teslas? Yeah, but they're a different thing. Like I said before, money isn't the deciding factor for everybody. Steve says, agree, it's going to be great to have the models competing on their own merits, away from charging. No one talks about an ICE model being appealing because of the type of gas it takes. Yeah. Actually, there's a big... I just saw headlines and little bits of this, but there's a big push right now from, I don't know if it's in Minnesota or federally, of corn growers being really upset that E80, we're making this switch to cleaner fuels. Why aren't we upping the amount that E85 or the ethanol content going into gasoline? Why aren't we incentivizing that more too? And I think it's really fascinating because I have great respect for farmers. Let me put that out there first. It's a very difficult job, and but when the ethanol thing kind of kicked off, which was a good thing to explore, it made sense to incentivize people to do this. I think a lot of it happens in every industry, and it's kind of what happens is you get used to something that used to be a bonus. And then when they start saying, hey, we're not going to up your bonus, and this bonus might go away, but you've built that into your forecasting of this is how much I'm going to make. It's really hard to, after years and years, to still see that as extra and, above food production crops. And so as, we're moving away from gasoline, slowly we'll be moving away from ethanol slowly with that. They're like, hey, we're clean. We're part of this too. We want in on some of this stuff, and I don't think they should be. But of course, when you say things like that, it sounds like you hate farmers and you don't want them to have a good living and all that stuff. It's, no, I want you guys to make food and feed people and do those kind of things. Or, I would rather see, if the government's going to make any balancing with that, I would rather see them incentivize, and I know they do to some degree, incentivize leaving the fields, I can't think of the term, but basically you don't plant in that field for a year and let it kind of refresh, or you plant different things and just kind of keep farms healthy and different nutrients going into different soils and things like that. I'd rather see that than, creating, corn for ethanol that's then got to be processed and trucked and, all that stuff to be added to gasoline that still gets burned. Again, I feel like the ethanol thing was a good thing to explore, like hydrogen was a good thing to explore, but I think we kind of have the data on that now that it's like, okay, we looked into it. We can start backing away from that, and we don't have to go down the hydrogen route. That's my 2 cents. Pretty uninformed, so feel free to correct me if I'm not making sense. Roland says, I think Tesla owners will be the one buying different EVs. Just here, I can put these on here so you can see them too. I think Tesla owners will be the one buying different EVs just to try out other techs and styles. We're leaning toward a Mustang. Yeah, I think I think there will be a wave of that. And you're kind of seeing that as, like Lucid came out, a lot of, Model S owners were testing that out. And I think that's good. People are going to find, again, the sweet spot of what they like, and I think we'll just see, instead of white Teslas everywhere, we'll see a variety like we do with ICE cars. Glenn says, my problem with most other EV manufacturers is the dealer model. I personally don't want to go back. Yeah. I can definitely see that. I've been lucky enough that my sister married an auto broker. And so before our Teslas, pretty much every vehicle was through him, and he'd get me the best price he could. He made a little money on it. I knew that going in, which he should. He did the deal and all that kind of stuff. But it wasn't gouging. A dealer moved something off their lot. We got a good deal. They got an appropriate amount of money. My brother-in-law got a little bit. And, it was really slick. So that might be an option for people who don't want to go, who might want to try another brand and not go through a dealer, is find an auto broker. I'm not sure how prevalent they are, but if you want my brother-in-law's info, I can give it to you. Not sponsored, by the way. Let's see. John says, I have a problem with hybrid cars. Well, you can't charge them at a charging station. And they charged up the vehicle, so you bring gasoline to the charge and batteries. It should not be allowed. Yeah, that'll be interesting, because Kyle Connor just tweeted, I think it was the Polestar announcement today, and Kyle tweeted, I can't wait to bring my plug-in hybrid, his Polestar 1, to the supercharger, and be the first plug-in hybrid to charge at a supercharger. So we'll see how that goes. I don't know. It'll be interesting. Maybe the Polestar 1 won't have the adapter. I would guess it would, but weird. Keenan says, Chemist, I struggled with the Mustang versus Y since last winter. Since the winter performance is less in Minnesota with a lack of heat pump, and it's nearly $10,000 more for an equally configured vehicle. What are you seeing? Yeah, Roland's had a couple Teslas for a while, so he might just be looking for a change of pace. Yeah, well, that's what happens with disruptive technology. I'm not quite sure what that's in reference to. Probably something I was saying a few minutes ago, because I'm not keeping up. Tom. Welcome, Tom. Oh, the ethanol thing. That's what you guys are referencing, yes. I agree. Ethanol was never meant to be a long-term solution. Yeah, it was a good thing to try out. And, if people made some good money on it in the meantime, that's great. But human nature does not do well with, after you've had something repeated, it's hard not to, kind of count on that. Roland says, we're 9 hours from the service center and out of warranty is a problem. Tried the Mach-E, looks okay. Feels okay. Asking $51,000 for all-wheel drive, plus the $7,500 from IRA. And there are Ford dealers out in North Dakota, so yeah, like Glenn says, it probably makes sense in your situation. So some other cool things that happened. The last time we did a live show was with Jim, the Iowa Tesla guy, and he's coming back from the West Coast through Canada And he did a post on Twitter. Let me see if I can find that. A day or so ago. About camping in his car. And Tesla retweeted him. And let's see if I can find it. Yeah, so this is the, you can't see this. I didn't put it on the second screen. And I think it's been so long since we did that live stream. I think we talked about his planning for this trip. And so he's going to be coming back across Canada and then down through North Dakota. I think he was hoping that the Minot supercharger would be open, but it doesn't look like it is at this point. But then he's going to come back through Minnesota down to Iowa. So that'll be cool. We're going to see if we can meet up with him when he comes through. So so that was pretty cool. And then I was also going to say, if you can't really see this, but I'm wearing a Jaws shirt because there's this weekend, that kind of happens over the Oh, shoot. No audio during Twitter display. Sorry about that. I should have double-checked that. What I was saying is it was cool to see Jim's post get retweeted by Tesla and showing real people doing things out with their cars. So that was cool. Sorry, the audio cut out for that. Each page has a different setting, so I must not have had the audio on there. Steve, it's cool to see his updates on his trip, and it's going to be really fun to see the videos he creates once he gets back. So if you're not subscribed to Iowa Tesla Guy, go ahead and do that, and you should see some pretty cool stuff. Some of the photos have been pretty stunning of the places they've been. John, I think Steve doesn't have a Tesla, so he's talking about the updates of Jim's trip, not the updates to FSD. But I was going to say, what I was saying before was I'm wearing a Jaws shirt tonight because the weekend, or the days leading up to the 4th of July are kind of the events of Jaws, and part of it takes place on 4th of July. Because we got to have the beaches open for 4th of July. And if you are on Twitter, there is a Twitter account for Mayor Larry Vaughn, and he's always like promoting the beaches should be open. If there's a shark attack, he's saying, it looks like just, seaweed or something like that. It's very funny, and this time of year is the best time to be following him, because there's somebody else who's, like Chief Brody and Hooper. If you know the movie Jaws, you know who these characters are. But they just kind of snipe at each other and find posts and like talk about, apparently, some girl went swimming the other day and got tired, and a boating accident. It's sad, but it happens. That was a post a day or two ago. Today they were talking about the little Kittner boy, and so if you like the movie like I do, they're fun handles to follow. Total left turn there. Jason Malone's doing Shark Week on Fox. I don't know who that is. But that's cool. More shark content, the better, as far as I'm concerned. Welcome to Let's Discuss Shark Shows. I also wanted to congratulate, I don't think he's on tonight, but Brandon Flash got a new Model Y, and he's got a video on that about kind of the pickup and kind of process. He's very funny, and just wanted the perfect configuration and the right amount of all the incentives and things he could get on it, and so delayed his delivery one day, and then he could get a blue Model Y with white seats, but no trailer hitch, but he got better incentives. I don't know. It was funny, but congratulations to him. Good color, blue, and with the white seats, because he's not doing road trips with a 9-year-old. That's good for him. So if you want to check that out, if you haven't seen it, he's got that posted. And then we got a lot of new superchargers open. Was the other thing I wanted to talk about. My last video was kind of about the build process of the supercharger in Egan, which is just 5 miles from me, maybe 10. Hey, Dave, welcome. Dave's hanging out with beautiful sunsets in Wyoming. He's going to be coming through Minnesota too, so that's pretty cool. And Steve's going to be coming through Minnesota, so I'm just going to stay here and let everybody come to me. But hope everything's going well out in Wyoming. Good weather and good sunsets. Lots of wildlife. But I was going to say about the new superchargers, I don't know exactly how it is with other states, but in Minnesota we just had Egan open. I'm gesturing, but you can't tell. We just had Egan open. Blaine is another one north of the Twin Cities that is the other day, I think Monday, Joan and I drove up there, and they were getting ready to paint the lines on the, for the parking spots. And and then Marshall, Minnesota, which is kind of central west Minnesota, a spot that really needed one. That just opened last weekend, and Wilmer isn't anywhere on the maps officially for Tesla, but that's also close to opening. So I think we're going to have another get-together and drive once all of those are open, and we'll all start at Egan and do a road trip that's probably straight out to Marshall, up to Wilmer, and then down to Blaine for the last stop, as just to kind of celebrate, hey, these are all opening and they're so close. So that's pretty cool. I think Owatonna and Tofty are also going to be opening up this year, but not for a few months. I think they'll be late Q3. So, but it's just so exciting to think that like we're going to have really. There's still going to be a couple dead spaces, but compared to like what North Dakota has, what South Dakota has, Wyoming and Montana. Minnesota is going to be really well covered by the end of this year, and I mean, like I said, still a couple gaps, but I'm very excited about that. Dave's building his remote ham station here, and he's got the Rivian out there with him, and he's been using the extra height you can get by bumping up the air suspension to get over some of that unlevel ground. I saw last week, I think it was the video where you were winding cable or like running cable out and putting up, I think you were putting up flags or maybe parking the car so you could see which direction you needed to go after you ran that long cable out. So pretty cool stuff there. Obviously, if you're nuts to subscribe to EV Dave, you should be. And Steve is Plug and Play EV. I haven't said that yet. And Roland is Chemist American Lifestyle, but that's in his handle, so you can see that too. Steve says, jealous, I'd love to keep heading west after Minnesota, but life. Yeah, I know. We've been trying to figure out when we can go further west, but right now it's just kind of trips around Minnesota, which is fine. There's plenty to see, and the more you look locally, there are more like parks and cool spots, cool like little waterfalls and things you can find if you look locally. So yeah, I definitely I'm having that too. Like, oh, it'd be cool if I could just go a little further. Or actually, the video I'm working on right now is if anybody saw our Ice Road Teslas video, where we drove out in the spring to the Siston, South Dakota supercharger. That day didn't quite go how we planned, but I went out there on June 21st, the longest day of the year, to celebrate. We have all this sunshine. We're going to drive all the way out there and all the way back, do some swimming on the way back and forth. So that will be, that video might come out tomorrow night, might be Saturday morning. We'll see. We'll see how much gumption I have tomorrow and how fast I can get that wrapped up. But so we're trying to do kind of big day trips until we can get our hands around a good meaty road trip to or from one of the coasts would be ideal, but we'll see. Tom says New Egan Supercharger is only 3.9 miles from my house. Yeah, Tom may have been the person I was talking to in one of the comments of that video. Because in that video about the supercharger opening, I was saying, this is great. It's perfect for people who live in apartments nearby or traveling to and from St. Paul, but I probably won't ever use it. And it may have been Tom who brought up, well, if you're headed home and you're at a low state of charge, it's nice to have a supercharger nearby, because if you suddenly get that call that, I need to run completely the opposite direction, in an emergency or something, having a supercharger near your house, if you got home from whatever activities you were doing at like 20% and like, now I need a good charge and I've got my level 2, or I need to go way out of my way to a supercharger before I leave. So having one close is great for that, to be able to quick top up, get out. So that's a benefit I hadn't thought of. John's still lobbying for the Cambridge, Minnesota supercharger. Yes, we do need one up there. Brandon did not get a performance Model Y. He got the rear-wheel drive 4680 Model Y with 278 or something like that miles of range. So he's going to do... He said he was going to do a bunch of testing, like a 70-mile-an-hour range test, like the Inside EVs they do for Inside EVs with Kyle and Tom do, and then like a 10% challenge like Kyle does, because apparently there hasn't, at least on YouTube, been a lot of content with the 4680 pack vehicles yet. So, but it seemed like build quality was all really good. He said there was one little thing, one of the rear USB-Cs was just not quite aligned with the plastic, so he couldn't quite plug it in, and they just popped it open, moved it, and reseated it, popped it back in. Obviously, you don't want to have any of those things, but he said the rest of the car was in good shape. He's going to do another video about all of that. So I would look for that coming up. But yeah, he didn't go performance. He went small battery, or smaller range, and he was really going for price. I think he's trying to buy a house and trying to cut down on expenses. So Larry, welcome. Do you know if hardware 4 and or the latest FSD betas have improved the phantom braking issue? It's the only complaint I have with my 2022 Model 3 long range when using autopilot. I don't know about hardware 4 because I don't know that we have a lot of people driving it yet. And they might not be on FSD. That might be a future update before they can start using FSD. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I feel like I've picked that up somewhere. The latest FSD beta for me has been pretty good with phantom brakes. Occasionally, like we were just driving through rural central Minnesota yesterday and today. My bigger issue is it always wants to get into the right lane on 2-lane roads, and sometimes it thinks a turn lane or a bypass lane is going to be a traffic lane. So it just like jumps over there like nope, that's a turn lane. So that's been my biggest reporting issue that I've been sending in. And I would say on the interstates, it's not a problem. And phantom braking, I don't think has been... I don't think... There have been slowdowns for things that I understood why it did it, that I wouldn't have. Where you're kind of behind a car, and it's just kind of riding right on the lane. And like you might wonder for a second as a human, like, is that person going to come over? And it's like, no, they're just not paying attention. Well, the car's going to like treat that as they might come over, I'm going to slow down. So I had a couple of those on the interstate today, but generally, other than that lane choice issue, the latest software I'm on is, I think, 4.4 or 11.4.4. And in town, it's been really pretty good in town. I would say the best version I've had. But just on those 2-lane highways, it gets kind of annoying. And like, I try to use it a lot, so I keep reporting those mistakes when they happen. But it did get to a point where, like, my brother was in the car with me, and he was like, "What's going on?" I'm like, "Okay, I'm just gonna shut it off and drive myself." But I've never really had bad phantom braking in my car, and I don't know why. Maybe it's the roads I drive. I can't put my finger on it. I totally believe that some people have had really bad situations with it, but it's just not like I could count on one hand over the last 2 years, like the bad phantom brakes I've had, and none of them have been recent. So I hope that helps. It's getting better slowly. Issues are being solved, hopefully. I don't think it'll be done this year. Evie Dave says it is a beverage antenna. I don't think I understand what that is. John says the new GM pickup has the charger in the right spot for superchargers. Yeah, it's lower or rear back part of the car. I did see some people, I think it was All Electric Family, talking on Twitter about how, like, that's, you're still going to have to detach trailers at most stops, which, might be the case. They just need to start making more pull-through spots. The spot in northern Minnesota, it's at the Casino Carlton. The Carlton supercharger has most of the superchargers on one side of the island, and then on the other side there's just one, and it's flat. So you can drive right up, no matter the length of your trailer, you can just drive up to that side, plug in, and then you have an easy exit. So I'd love to see more of those. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if manufacturers move their charge spots, or if the adapter has some length of cable to it, which would be hard with, like, cooling, or if Tesla's going to add longer stations or longer hand cables to their stations. Imagine charging a 200 kilowatt battery at home. Yeah, that those things are going to be beasts. I suppose we will see a lot of people putting them in their homes, but I'm wondering if mostly that size pack is going to be for fleet vehicles, but I don't know. We'll have to see until once they start delivering them. Dave S., has anybody heard what the CCS to NACS adapter will be like? Suspect it needs to be a long cable so as to use one parking space. Yeah, I would think so. I just don't know how you do the cooling in the... Or maybe you don't do liquid cooling. Maybe you do the beefier cable like the V2 superchargers had. But you don't want to make it too unwieldy either. I don't know. I would imagine it will be more than just the magic dock part. But we will see. Kevin charged at Marshall on Monday. Congratulations. You must be one of the first. That's cool. Yeah, that was a weird rollout because I heard, like, definitively that it was open, but it wasn't showing up on the app, or it was showing up in the app as, like, 0 stalls available out of 12. I think it's 12. And the website, the Find Us Tesla website, like you couldn't even click on the icon. It wouldn't come up. So I was like, guys, I know it's open, but I wasn't confident enough to drive out there myself, which I wanted to. But I'm like, man, if it's not, it's going to be a drag. I'm going to have to level 2 charge there to get down to the highway, and I don't want to spend a day doing that. Glenn says, I thought it was all-wheel drive, but standard range 4680. Oh, maybe it is. I could be mistaken. It's been quite a day. Nope. Jason says no beta yet for hardware 4. The darn left turn lane on beta. Yeah, it likes to jump into the turn lanes. Yeah. John says that's another thing, they're putting this camera on the front bumper. How about if people that paid for FSD, the better update, all the free, there's gonna be a class action lawsuit. Maybe. Yeah, there's a lot of conjecture out there that that's going to be the case. I guess the question will be is can they deliver the full self-driving as they defined it when we bought it with hardware 3? And if they just can't, maybe everybody gets a new bumper, or there will be a class action lawsuit. I don't know. I think we're in for a pretty exciting year as far as, but I think they'll also know pretty quick, or might know already internally, because clearly they've been testing the hardware for cars. So I would think, their preliminary data might be showing, oh, this is worlds better. Or maybe it's like, yeah, it's not that big of a deal, but it does help. And they should be getting a sense of that already. Jason's driving around with hardware 4 on his car, so... but I don't think Jason does not have the... I think we looked at this at the Supercharger party on Saturday. He doesn't have front cameras yet, but he might have a spot where they might go. I'm not quite sure. I was trying to film and watch my daughter and listen in on the conversation at the same time, so I might have that wrong. Jason's still got phantom braking. Glenn's has been better, but he's been diligently cleaning his windshield. Jason says, okay, it's the same, but it hasn't been bad. Blue Dog says not to change the subject, but this is the year we get to see awesome Tesla ads during the Super Bowl. Kevin, it was 12 stalls in Marshall. Good, thank you. Appreciate that. I assume you had a good session and everything. Are we going to see a Tesla Super Bowl ad? I don't know. It would be... Here's what I'd like. I'd either like them to not do one and maybe put out a cool web video about that time, or do a long one that is super well produced and really educational. Like, what are the things you want to know about electric cars? And we're going to educate you in a cool way, and maybe a 30-second to minute-long video, maybe minute and a half. Yes, it would be incredibly expensive, but like I would almost rather see them do that of like, okay, we are going to show you Tesla's doing really cool things in really cool places, and you're going to be wowed by the performance, the space, all that kind of stuff. And you're also going to learn that it's okay to switch to an EV and make it desirable. I think if they do it, that's how they should attach it. But As Jason says, there's no chance of a Tesla ad in Super Bowl for my 2 cents. Yeah, I think it's... But I can see them doing something like that. Like they've been doing on their YouTube channel, they have been producing more and more short to the point, educational type videos. I will try to show this to you without losing audio. Let's see. Just search YouTube for Tesla. There's no other channels that talk about Tesla other than Tesla, right? Here we go. And I'm not going to play any of them for you. You should have my audio now. I'm not going to play any of them because of copyright strikes, but like just today was a Model Y engineering from first principles, 2.5 minutes long, just information, cool stuff, cool images, boring tech talk going on in the background. Chargers that work, talking about the superchargers, and there's little data points about the you kind of see some of their internal screens. People were talking about that, and so you see every few weeks there have been these little drops of cool things. So they're starting to do that. I would call that a type of advertising. So that's, like I said, if they were to do something big around the time of the Super Bowl, I think it would be, something like that on a massive scale. But I do agree with Jason. I don't think it's going to happen. And SpaceX will never land an orbital rocket on land. Yeah, I mean, it could happen. I just think they're smarter about how they spend their money than the bang for the buck they'd get. They get such a bump from other companies advertising their EVs on the Super Bowl that I don't know why they'd need to do that as well, or do their own advertising. I'm just noticing it again and want to mention, I'm sorry about all of this. I'm in the middle of a few different art projects, and so there's stuff in the background today, and I didn't have time to set up the big camera, so that's what it is. But speaking about education and stuff, I had a thirsty mouth that I'm going to not describe anymore, but I'm going to take a drink. I started that sentence and thought, where in the world are you going? But I had on one of the comments on Facebook to a post about, I think it was about the supercharger. A friend of the family chimed in, and he was like, I don't think he's really too in the weeds on electric vehicles, probably doesn't think they're anything he needs to concern himself, and maybe he's right, but he was just asking, how long does it take, how much does it cost to charge, and there's still so many people that have no idea with EVs, or like you can look at the even Electrify America. If you don't know, they have their own plan, and you can get a better deal. You think it's more expensive than it is. So I took the time to here are all my notes. Sorry I can't put this up on screen, but basically that supercharger is 41 cents a kilowatt hour. And I thought, it's hard to explain to people that how much does it cost to, it depends. That's not a great first answer. Although we all know that's true if you own an EV. And so I'm like, what he really wants to know is, if I fill up my tank, how much is it going to cost me? So I'm going to give that info to him first. So I said, my car's got a 75 kilowatt hour battery. If I supercharge at 41 cents a minute, or 41 cents a kilowatt hour, that's going to come out to $30.75, 0 to 100. But if I do that at home with my time of use, I'm paying only 7.55 cents per kilowatt hour. And so again, take that with the 75 watt hour battery. That's only $5.66, 0 to 100. And I said, in the real world, interstate highway traveling, let's say that's 250 miles. And then I don't know if I told him this, but I was also figuring, well, most times you get to a charger with, roughly 20%, you go up to roughly 80. So if you were to fill up, basically 60% of your battery, it would cost, at a supercharger, that's 45 kilowatt hours, that would be $18.45 is what, that kind of situation would be. But then I also kind of talked through, like, okay, the last trip, our average stop time was 26.5 minutes because of, I got to take my daughter to the restroom. We got to do family things. And so the car's generally ready before we are. And our average stop at each cost was $10.46. And the total charging, this is the trip we did up to Grand Marais where I saw the moose. So all this stuff is at the end of that video. But the total cost in charging for that trip was $63.86 for 669 miles, or about 10 cents per mile. And then I thought, well, he's going to want to know how that compares. So I did some searching for, what the local gas prices were. Sorry, I'm mirrored here, so when I go one way, it goes the other. I'm just going to tell you because that's too awkward. So basically, if I were to do that same distance with just home charging, instead of $63.86, it would cost $15.78. So if I could use my home base instead of needing to supercharge. And to do that in a gas car that gets 30 miles per gallon, that would take 22.3 gallons. And the current cost in Burnsville for gas is $3.55 for the cheap stuff. We'll see what the ethanol people have to say about that. Not opening that can of worms again. But essentially, it cost a gas car $79 or 11.8 cents a mile. So your pricing can vary wildly depending on what you're doing, how you're using it. And then, you have the option of level 2 charging at hotels. Sometimes that's hosted. I didn't get into that because it was a Facebook reply. But, I'm thinking about doing a video, and maybe it'll be with a whiteboard or a chalkboard or something, and just kind of run through those basics of, like, here are, what does it cost, how much, or, how much time does it take. And so I actually did a Twitter thread, or a Twitter post that I meant to have ready. Go to my... Oh, also, for those in Minnesota, Owatonna, the construction folks just went down there the other day, and they're ready to get started. That's going to be in a Culver's parking lot. So let me see if I can bring this up. But I wanted to get more, because I'm always going with my daughter to these, on these trips. I wanted to ask EV drivers, what's your average charging stop time? My last trip average was 28 minutes. Apparently I was wrong. It was 26.5 minutes, but whatever. And then, so I actually got a lot of really good info from a lot of different types of vehicles, and just it sounds like 15 to 18 minutes if you don't have kids, or if you're traveling alone, and then if you've got another person or family, you're more in the 25-minute range. So a lot of cool stuff. So I think that's going to be an upcoming video that's going to be very basic, but if anybody has anything in the comments to chime into, this person's doing 10 minutes or less. This person does 20 minutes. So it's just it's also kind of interesting how different people like to travel and how that's presenting itself in EVs. So, if you were in this Twitter thread or answered it, thank you. But if you want to share info in the comments here, I'd be interested to know that. I need to check. I haven't had time to check with. We only charged twice yesterday after the racetrack, and then today at Hinckley. So very short stops, and we still got home with like 30% or something, which, again, if I could have gone faster and not had to pay for more expensive charging, I definitely would have done that. But yeah, John's wondering why I have beer cans all over the place. Advertising in media would probably help Tesla's presence on the editorial side. Yeah, probably. I think there's a lot of people that think Tesla is just Elon, and every decision and every whim, every crazy whim he has is the brand, and really it's a bunch of hardworking, dedicated. I mean, Elon's done tons for Tesla. I'm not trying to say he hasn't, but Tesla is a huge group of people who are very dedicated and trying to do their best, mission driven on, what Tesla is trying to accomplish. So, yeah, I think putting good, solid information out in a not wink, wink, nudge, nudge kind of tweet storm will do better to get people to trust when they say they have great safety. Oh, they had a little video showing why their safety is so great. Is a little more convincing. Jason says, positive sign. A lot of people ask me about EV on the drag strip track. Got a lot of, I didn't know an EV could do that. Yeah. I had my daughter with me, and my brother was very helpful. But I did see Jason parked across the track and a bunch of guys talking to him. And I'm like, oh man, I wish I was over there, like, recording this, because I bet there are good questions and, probably some good-natured ribbing. And, obviously the numbers don't want to spoil Jason's news, but in his Model S Plaid, he got on an imperfect track, he got 9.7, I think was his fastest time on a quarter mile. So very quick. He had a few runs under 9, and then a few runs under 10, and then a couple over. But seems like traction was the issue for him. But yeah, when people see numbers like that, or this silent thing just tear apart the track while somebody is making all the noise in the world and taking 14 seconds or even 12 seconds to get down the track compared to the Plaid, it's an eternal difference. I also was hoping for tonight I could show you some of those clips. They'll be in the video of this trip of the drag strip clips. I didn't get every vehicle, but I did get some ICE cars, some of the cooler ones, and then somebody was running a Model 3. Then there was Jason's, and then I can't remember if there was another one at the track. But cool, fun night. So I think those are the big topics I wanted to cover. Does anybody else have any other questions, comments, concerns? I will try to do this more than every 3 months. Gonna try to get back to doing it the last Wednesday of every month. I'm hoping I can do that. Hopefully the next time I have to skip one on a Wednesday night is either for a really good video reason or because we're on the road. But I was thinking it would be cool to do this from the road, and I'm going to see if I can come up with a mobile setup to do this. So if we are traveling or at a lake or something, give you guys a little different background that's maybe a little more interesting. I think that would be cool to actually bring the live stream setup to a remote location. I might be able to do it with my phone. I'm not sure if my phone is that capable, but so hopefully we can keep this up at a more repeatable pace again. Blue Dog advertising buys car companies, better publicity, that's for sure. And Tesla's been on the wrong end of FUD for years. Yeah, I mean, that would, if they start advertising in publications, I wonder if they'd ever do print media. That would be kind of surprising if they did, but even on websites, it sounds like there's some Google ads when you search for stuff. Some Tesla ads are coming up. I haven't had a chance to look into that or test it, but that's just been the last few days. Steve says, good point on kids. We're probably closer to 30 minutes for these trips compared to the low 20s when it's just me and a dog. Yeah. I do want to, because this question came up, I was thinking, I'm not sure of the last time I traveled alone and was trying to hurry. And what could my travel, or what could my stop times be if I was really being meticulous and planning it out? So I'm trying to think of a not too long of a trip, but something that would give me some good stats. Well, maybe when those superchargers open, if I do that loop. But I'm going to want to hang out with people who are like just hitting each one. So maybe I do it twice. I don't know. Do it once to wants to like hang out and then another time to do a speed run. We'll see. I'll come up with some stupid challenge and do that. See how short I can make them. Yeah, Jason's showing what maximum warp is. Yeah, the track announcer did do the flux capacitor joke. Yeah, there were a couple of the ice cars that were having some problems, and I don't think they're real healthy anymore. But I'm sure the guys who put those together know what they're doing in rebuilding them. And it's the drag strip, although it was very smelly, we were right downwind of all the tires burning, which was not a great place to be, but a good vantage point. It kind of got me thinking, this is where ice cars should be. Like, for fun, there were some of those where you're like, yeah, that never drives on the real road. That was trailered here. They're having a lot of fun, and then, it's going to be trailered out. And, that might be the future of, ice driving, where everybody's doing their commutes and things. The day-to-day stuff is EV, and then you have, you take your loud, probably slower vehicle, but maybe more fun to work on and everything, and you take that to the track and have your weekend fun. And yeah, you're making some emissions, some particles with the tires and stuff, but if you're not doing that day to day, and these are isolated things, it's going to be a big net positive. So, Gerhard says, maybe I'm too cynical, but most reviews seem to have close relationship to the manufacturer's advertising budget. Yeah. I mean, there are definitely, in the YouTube world, it's the sponsored content kind of thing where, I watch a lot of camera reviews and things like that, and some of them are just a little too rosy. And you start wondering, what's the real relationship here? Volvo EX30 versus Polestar 3 price point spectrum. What the hell? I know different segments, but 50,000 difference seems nuts given EX30 specs. Yeah, trying to remember standing by the Polestar 3. Speaking of which, Steve, did you do a video, like a full video, or just the teaser on the Polestar 3? Because I don't think I saw your full video if you made one, but I do want to check it out. But the EX30 looked dinky when compared to Kyle and Tom and some of the other people who got to see that. So I'm wondering if they just figure, people think they're going to want the EX30, but it's not going to be enough space for them, and they might go up to the Polestar 3, or maybe Polestar 3 cost will come down. I don't know. All of Polestar seems a little high. Like I enjoyed my driving the Polestar 2, and I think the Polestar 3 looks really cool. But they kind of seem to be, and maybe even attracting we want something, like a Model 3 or like a Model Y, but not. something that maybe has that startup feel and we're willing to pay a little more for it. But you're right, if it's a 50,000 difference, I don't personally know a lot of people who would not see that as a giant red flag, if not a complete, a complete deal breaker. So I didn't realize it was that big of a difference. And they're both going to be able to charge at the... I mean, the XC30 looks like... if I remember the reviews I was seeing correctly, and now that it's going to have the NACS connector, it seems like the EV that everyone will want. Really, other than the size, if you just say I can't have something that small, that could be the issue. But then I think you'd be looking at different vehicles. You'd be looking at the maybe Mustang Mach-E, Model Y. Again, unless you just have like such a brand preference. I talked to somebody, I think it's John, who bought the BZ4X. I think that's the Toyota. Doesn't have great range, doesn't have great charging. But, he was a, Toyota guy. He had a Prius for years, and he liked the way it looked, and he, can charge, along the way where he needs to travel, and he's really, really happy with it. So, you just kind of, I never, want to denigrate anyone's, purchase choice. If they love a thing and want to buy it, then, and they have the means, then go ahead and buy it. I did sit in it in the BZ4X, and it's Prius-esque, like a much, much nicer version than my Prius. I'm not crazy about all the layout of some of the things, but again, I didn't choose to buy it. But I could definitely sit in it and go, okay, yeah, I can see if you're in the Toyota world and, you want to get into an EV, or, you do your long trips by plane, then, yeah, get what you like. Mike, hi. Who's looking for solar or wants to sell solar? Just as short so far. I'm not yet in the market for solar. It's on the list someday, but not yet. Need to pay off an EV first. Steve says just a short so far. PS3 didn't seem like a huge car though. Oh, just a short so far. Okay, he hasn't done the full video. Okay, I got it. I got you. Sorry, the solar curveball threw me. PS3 didn't seem like a huge car though. Yeah, it's not gigantic. I don't think... It might be a little longer than the Model Y, but it didn't seem like it would be gigantic next to the Model Y. But I think the EX30 is like a hatchback version of the Model 3, maybe. Maybe more that size. NAS driver, hi. I guess I just don't believe the EX30 will be 35,000 for long, if at all. Yeah, I wonder if they're, trying to wow everybody with the price, and then when it actually gets here, if it'll be closer to 40 or more, or just like the 35 version will be so bare bones, you're going to be adding stuff to it. If you want modern car features, that could be the case. Yeah, I feel that way. I didn't see enough on the Polestar 3 that made it a 90,000 car for me. I agree. That's kind of how I came away with it. And I don't think I really mentioned that in the video because it is a year off. And like I said, the people who want it are going to want it. So I don't know if I mentioned much about the price, but yeah, I couldn't justify. There's nothing about it that's so special that it's worth, 30, 40, 50,000 more than, a comparable vehicle. So, I don't know if they're just targeting. I wonder if they have to charge that much because of, production and shipping, everything's. I would think production's relatively cheap because they're in China or being produced in China. Is the 3? I think it is. Yeah, because it's also not going to qualify for the $7,500 tax credit. So, yeah, you'd think they'd be producing them pretty cheaply, and obviously they have to ship them. Yeah, that's again, maybe they're just targeting a higher end buyer who doesn't really care what the cost is. They just want something. Maybe they've always been Volvo people, and this seems like the trendy move from Volvo. And they don't want a XC90 or whatever the EV of that is going to be. I don't know. It's going to be a head scratcher. I think everything's going to be so. I think there's going to be so much turmoil in the next year as things like the Silverado come out. We see if anybody actually buys the Cybertruck. People think. Again. There's huge reservation numbers, but we don't know until they start selling them, and maybe it'll be a smash hit and it'll blow everybody away. Maybe it won't. Maybe people just put down a bunch of reservations for the lulls. I don't know, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. When that comes out, the Silverado, the Equinox. I think the Equinox is going to really probably make it hard for the Polestar 3. If you've been used to Equinoxes, Equini, and you're happy with that, then does going to something that's maybe a little bigger with the Polestar 3, does it even appeal to you, or do you just say, oh, that's too expensive, or that I'll just stick with Chevy because that I like the Equinox. I think that could be, if they can produce enough of them, I think that could be a game changer. But it's all going to be. I feel like we're in a spot right now where there are tons of predictions and people really sure of themselves on how things are going to go. But I'm just kind of like, I have no idea until like I said, probably a year and a half from now, we're going to see how things shake out, how the EV adoption curve is. It seems to be accelerating pretty well. Who can produce what, and what our cost structure is looking like. So, and how big of an effect the tax incentives have. Because I think, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I think next year the 7,500 comes off the price of the vehicle when you buy it, which I think would be a big help for a lot of people, because you're not having to finance that and then hopefully getting some, enough back in your taxes. If that's off the hood starting next year, that could make a huge difference for a lot of people. So, interested to hear any thoughts on that if you've got them. But we are after 11 here in the Midwest, so I think I'm going to wrap it up unless anybody else has anything in the chat they want to throw in quickly. I'll do my best to answer that. But really appreciate people coming out. I know it's been a long time since the last one. I do want to get back to doing this every last Wednesday of every month. Hopefully we can get back on that track. My next video is coming out, like I said, will be the trip to the Sisseton, South Dakota Supercharger with some fun day stops, and I did complete boneheaded charging at the beginning of that trip. I thought I was going to be really clever. I make a couple stupid, arguably for good reasons, but I charged like an idiot in the beginning of that, and so want to share that with everybody. But people who travel all the time still don't make the best charging decisions, or sometimes get a little too clever for ourselves and add charging stops when we wouldn't need to. But that's coming up, like I said, in the next couple days. Might be tomorrow afternoon, could be Saturday. And then the following week will be either the, kind of the nuts and bolts of how much does it cost to charge. I know we just went over that. I think I just went out of focus from my camera. Hello? Anyway, it's blurry on my end. I hope it's not for you. But I'll either do that video or the road trip we just had to Brainerd International Raceway, and our trip back, and a little bit on the lake and stuff there, and maybe photos of a loon and a snapping turtle. I saw a snapping turtle on the lake this morning that's head was bigger than my fist, and I tried to get photos of it, and I think they turned out like crap. But I tried. And then the loon, I was shooting photos from a canoe, and so the canoe's going up and down, and I'm trying to hold a long lens steady, and again, I'll have to get everything in and see what we got, but hopefully I can share that with you too. Steve says, I also wonder about who buys a 2024 model when waiting for a 2025 to get you a native NACS port. I think people who don't care or don't know, or maybe people who live in areas like you, Steve, where is plenty of CCS charging, and it's been pretty robust. If I lived there, I wouldn't have any qualms about having a CCS car, and then, hey, if I get more options with an adapter next year, then that's great. But I think, we might be getting, as we get to wider adoption, those might just not be questions the average buyer is savvy enough to know to answer, savvy enough to ask those questions yet. Let's see. Garrett, branding has a bit of influence on pricing. If Equinox is considered entry level, another car is considered luxury brand. Rational thought leaves the equation. Yeah, I mean, that might be what Polestar is hoping for. Steve says adapters are fine for existing owners, but it's clear NACS will eventually be the one to buy. Yeah. Well, yeah, I wonder what that does to the resale market of CCS vehicles. You'd have to make sure you get your NACS connector or your NACS adapter when buying a used vehicle. And I think somebody posted out that the CCS might be like CHAdeMO. Excuse me. Where there's still a handle on EA stations for CHAdeMO. Maybe in 5 years, maybe the CHAdeMO's gone, and there's a couple handles of CCS still, until those vehicles move through the fleet. I'm not sure. But anyway, we're well past 11 now, and I got up at 6 to go look at the lake. So time for me to hit the hay, and thank you all for joining. I really appreciate you jumping on with very little notice and contributing in the chat. That's really helpful because, it gets me thinking about other things too. So I appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Look for those other videos coming up soon, and we'll hopefully see you the last Wednesday in July for another live stream. Thank you very much. And how do I end these again?